What's up, guys? With the Valtan patch coming out soon, everyone's been asking me which relic set should I go for as an Artillerist. Now, I will say, you won't be able to finish the set completely until Vykas comes out, but I think this will be a great way to get you started and working on which of the three Artillerist builds you want to choose. I will say you can get the legendary gear set as well, but I'm going to leave that out of the video and focus on the three main relic set bonuses that artillerists tend to go for. So let's hop right into it and take a look at them. You'll see I've broken up each build into a few categories to give you a quick summary of their strengths and weaknesses at a glance. You'll see we have how much damage each build does, the mobility that each build has, the difficulty it is to play the build, and about how much you can expect to spend for engravings, accessories, those kind of things. It is from 1 to 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. So let's hop right into it. First up, you can see we have the Nightmare set, which is generally run with Swift first and then Crit secondary. It's a okay damage build of the three. It's not super high damage, but it is, as you can see, incredibly mobile. And the reason for that is you have a very high amount of swiftness in the build, leading to very high cooldown reduction. The set bonus as well gives very, very high cooldown reduction, so that you can be constantly spamming swing or gaining high move speed through swiftness. Your main rotation is just constantly putting down abilities outside of barrage mode. You don't use barrage mode very much at all. You will hop in once in a while when you maybe you're low on mana or you need some cooldowns, but once you get this set bonus up and running, it really solves both of those issues. It reduces the mana cost of your skills and gives you more cooldown reduction, like I had mentioned. It does just give increased damage to mobs, which is really important. The difficulty on it is actually pretty low. It's quite an easy build to play. One of the big reasons being that with all that cooldown reduction, you have a much lower cooldown on your energy field. What this means is you can get nearly 100% uptime and constantly be shielded from damage, and that also makes you push immune. So this rotation is super easy. You really can't mess it up. You're constantly putting down your homing barrage, your air raid. That would be the one big drawback is, there is some delay before those big bombs hit. So constantly having to put them down and making sure that the boss stays in them makes it gives it a little bit of difficulty, but compared to the other three builds, incredibly easy. Like I said, lots of move speed, low cooldowns, makes it really nice and comfortable to play. You'll see a lot of people have been running Swift and Crit in T1 and T2. The cost of the build is actually not too bad. The big reason is you can use some other engravings that are a little less common. For example, you can use Raid Captain since you're building so much swiftness, and that eventually when supports get their set bonus, you'll gain some more move speed through that. So you can use Raid Captain. Another big one, as I was saying, since you have your shield up very often, you can actually run Barricade, which tends to be a cheaper engraving as well. Besides that, you're looking to run your class engraving Firepower, Keen Blunt Weapon, Grudge, Curse Doll, Hitmaster, all the usual suspects. Outside of those are great additions, but like I said, you can get away with some cheaper engravings. This is the third build on the list, the lowest I would say. You really only pick this build if you're looking for something just easy, comfortable, not that hard to play. It gets the job done and you don't have to work too hard with it. Next, we'll be taking a look at the Hallucination set. Now, this is where we really start to see a nice increase in damage with the set bonuses and the builds that Artillerists run. You can see that we do have a little bit more damage here. We are now running Specialization as our main stat and Swiftness as our secondary stat. The reason for that is with the Hallucination set bonus, you actually get a base amount of crit. So on the first set, you'll get 20% crit, and then when we upgrade our sets, you'll get 25% crit from the set bonus alone. So this allows us to run swiftness on our neck piece and then specialization on every other piece. So our damage really starts to ramp up here with the specialization builds. You can see our mobility is a little bit lower than the swiftness build with Nightmare. We don't have nearly as much swiftness, so we don't have as much move speed. We have much less cooldown reduction from less swiftness, and there's no cooldown reduction on the set bonuses. But you do still have that little extra move speed. You're not completely immobile. It's not too bad. The difficulty does start to get a little more difficult here. The reason being, you are looking at running Barrage now, your identity skill. So with that, you'll be using the Barrage engraving, meaning you need to become much better and more aware of boss mechanics. Before, you had to put down a lot of homing barrages and air raids. You have to do that on top of knowing when to enter barrage mode and making sure that since you become immobile and stationary, the boss needs to stay next to you so that you can get out all of your damage. On top of that, you don't want to enter barrage mode and then immediately the boss does a mechanic where you either have to run off to do the mechanic or you'll die if you stay in place. So the difficulty really starts to kind of ramp up here. But like I said, you do get rewarded for that more difficult play style by doing much more damage. The Hallucination set gives you a flat amount of damage that's relatively easy to keep the stacks up just by attacking. And you can keep the bonus rolling. The cost does go up here because you can't really run the cheaper engravings like you can with the Nightmare set. You are looking at both class engravings, firepower, and barrage, and that's what really starts to crank up the price. You'll notice in Argos, the accessories that you get drop with a guaranteed class engraving. And as far as we're aware, that will no longer be the case once Valtan comes out for the West. And what that means is it becomes really difficult to get a class engraving going, let alone two of them, because you need an artillerist to have that item drop and then put it on the auction house for you to buy. Artillerist is a fairly uncommon class, so there's really not that many artillerists to create these accessories that you need to buy. So what that means is you are then kind of forced into using the class books for your class engravings, which leaves your accessories with the most expensive ones in the game: Grudge, Keen Blunt, Cursed All, Hitmaster, Adrenaline, and that's what's really going to start driving the price up. But you can kind of see a bit of a trend. It becomes harder to play, it costs more, but you're doing more damage. Hallucination, I would say, is the balanced spec. As you can see, we're gaining damage, losing mobility. This is really the build that most people will choose when they just want that really nice balance of damage and difficulty mobility. Now, the next one we're going to go on is going to get even more damage, so let's take a look. Finally, we reach the big boy build. You can see, as I was saying, there's a trend. Our damage, difficulty, and cost are increasing, but our mobility is going down. This is the Earth's Entropy set, also known as Salvation or Redemption on other servers. It has a few names, but this is the one it looks like Amazon's gonna go with. And as you can see, this is another specialization build, which is where a ton of our damage is coming from. And our secondary stat now is crit instead of swiftness. So we're basically choosing the two highest damage stats and we're going all in on damage. We do much more damage than both of the other builds. But as you can see, our mobility starts to heavily suffer in this build. We no longer have any swiftness, so we lose that base move speed. We lose that base cooldown reduction for abilities like swing and jump barrage. The trade-off is we do get attack speed on the Earth's Entropy set, so your attack speed won't feel any more sluggish than the Hallucination set. The Nightmare stat will still be the fastest attack speed and move speed. But like I said, your mobility is going down quite a lot. You're getting a lot of damage in return, but you're moving much slower. Your cooldowns are much more punishing if you miss them. And yeah, so that ties into the difficulty. You then have to do boss mechanics with absolutely no move speed and possibly just one movement cooldown in swing that has quite a long cooldown. You need to know every single mechanic like the back of your hand, because this is again another barrage build that you're running. So you need to make sure every single one of your homing barrage, your air raids, your multiple rocket launchers land. You need to make sure that when you set up in barrage mode, the boss is going to stay still for the next 10 to 15 seconds. You need to make sure that he's not going to do any abilities that are going to instantly kill you. The difficulty is really starting to ramp up here. But like I said, you're getting a huge payoff in the damage if you can make it through all of these. The lack of mobility, the increased difficulty. The cost here is going to be high again, similar to the Hallucination build. There's not really any cheap engravings that you can run. You're going to be running both firepower and barrage. So again, running both class engravings is going to really start to ramp up your cost. Grudge, Keen Blunt, Curstall, Hitmaster, Adrenaline, again, just the most expensive engravings that you're going to see with the double class engraving really drives the price up. This is the kind of, once you have content on farm, you can go this build. This is very high end, difficult to play. It's going to be pretty tough to play for progression, unless again you have really high item level and you're almost like whale status where you have level 10 gems. You outgear the content, so you can kind of get hit by a few mechanics and you're not going to just instantly die. This is the top of the line, hardest to play build by far. But like I said, if you play this and you know what you're doing, you will be incredibly rewarded with the damage done. Very high damage, but it does come at the cost of difficulty. That was just a quick summary of the 3 builds that are the most popular builds that artillerists tend to run. You can choose tons of different sets and stats. Don't let this be the only ones you choose from. If there's something you want to run, by all means try it out, right? That's how you figure out what you like, what you don't like, what's good, what's bad. Even though the Nightmare set I feel doesn't do much damage, it's really comfortable to play. It's not punishing at all. Super easy to just go in, do your job, and get out, right? The Earth's Entropy set, really high skill ceiling. If you're looking for that, much more difficult to play, really brings that edge to the class with not only the damage, but just that extra level of switching in and out of your identity skill with barrage mode and really understanding the boss mechanics. But again, that build is very punishing, and I only recommend that if you know what you're doing. The Hallucination set is just a great all-around combination of the two, with pretty decent mobility, forgiving cooldowns, while still providing really solid damage. I would suggest most people try the Hallucination build first. I think it's a good combo, like I said. And then maybe if you're starting to get a little spicy, you can try out Earth's Entropy. There is a system in place where once you've collected enough materials from both raids, you can actually freely swap your set bonuses as much as you want with no cost. Now, you will have to have an extra set of accessories for the other stats, but it makes it super easy to try out different builds and see what you really like. Like I said, there's tons of other builds. These aren't the only builds you can play, but they are the ones that I think have the best chance at performing better than everything else. As usual, if you guys have any questions, please leave them down in the comment section below. I know this barely even scratched the surface of the builds, but I really think it's just a great way to get you going and figuring out what builds you want to start working towards. I will be making a video over the build I'm going to be playing once the patch comes out, so keep an eye out for that. I will give you a hint, it is the Earth's Entropy build. You know me, I can't help it, I love the high skill cap stuff, but until then, I will be making rotation, engravings, runes, all that stuff, super in depth like my last video you saw, so keep an eye out for that. Otherwise, if you guys don't have any questions, catch me over on twitch.tv/Karth. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.